Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the Mayor, Heath Sheeran, and the host of this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, today I've got a little something different for you. Today, first of all, Happy New Year. I hope that 2025 was good for you. If it wasn't, then we get to turn the page and start all over. 2026 is going to be a good one. Super pumped about this one today. I don't have a guest. It's just me hanging out. What I wanted to do today was just release some audio and some video from one of my keynotes that I did in 2025 that I had such a good time with. Thank you to AUBE KNIGHT and his crew over at North Carolina Big I, and all my friends over there. I had such a great time and learned so much, and hopefully will continue to grow in my speaking career and learn more. This was one of my keynotes that I did there, and I would love for you to check it out. Let me know what you think. This episode, as usual, is sponsored by my friends over at Smart Choice, the fastest growing agency network, hands down. Go check it out at smartchoiceagents.com. They have no fees. They have higher commissions, lower premium thresholds. They have 11,000 agencies and like $11 billion in written premium. It's no wonder they are the fastest growing agency network. Also, my friends over at Canopy Connect. Go to usecanopy.com/Heath and see what you're missing, because if you're not using them yet, you are missing out on so much with intake forms and intake platform, getting loss runs, getting deck pages that you need to quote your prospect. That's all within one click. And that could be a customizable click. It could be a link that goes to referral partners, to your prospects, to current clients, you name it. So much. Sky's the limits. Use canopy.com. Also, my friends over at MAV. Oh, man. MAV is a new partner of ours that has already hit the ground running. I love working with them. And guys, you hate phone calls and spam calls. Your clients hate them. Ditch the call center and use AI. They have a texting platform, AI insurance ready to qualify to quote your prospects and to connect them with your agents so you can get more deals done with higher closing ratios and higher efficiency. And it's just amazing. You got to go check it out. Go to hiremav.com and tell them the mayor sent you and that you heard about it from this show. Now, guys, I'm going to slide away and let you check out this keynote presentation that I did at the Big I of North Carolina.
Let's welcome IIANC Chief Executive Officer, AUBE KNIGHT.
All right, welcome back, everyone, for our final general session of Expo 2025. Our next speaker is Heath Sheeran, host of Insurance Town podcast. Heath is a second-generation insurance professional with nearly 2 decades of experience spanning agency sales, carrier marketing, and consulting. He is the creator and the host of the popular Insurance Town podcast, which launched in 2020. He has released over 280 weekly episodes featuring candid, insightful conversations designed to help insurance professionals grow, learn, and connect. Whether behind the mic or in front of an audience, Heath is on a mission to make the insurance industry feel more like a community. One podcast, one handshake, and one conversation at a time. He's going to be speaking on a session that is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is how servant leadership works. And I'm a big into servant leadership. The presentation is Out of Service, How Servant Leadership Fuels Agency Growth. So please join me in welcoming Heath to the stage for this final general session presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
So, again, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the warm welcome. So I married my best friend, and I feel like I'm probably one of the luckiest guys in the world. She's in the industry as well. We're both second generation, and we get to travel a lot together, and we get to go a lot of places together. And everywhere we go hand in hand. We go side by side. And if she was here right now, she'd be sitting over there, and I'd probably have you guys say hello to her, and I'd embarrass her, and I always get a kick out of it. But she's not here today. She had to stay home and do some other things. But Like I said, everywhere we go, we're side by side, both physically and metaphorically speaking. And physically, I'm a big guy. And as we're walking together, and wherever we are, whether in the airport, the mall, sidewalk, wherever, if someone's coming at me, I'm not going to move. It's a fatal flaw of mine, I guess. It's something that, people maybe I'm arrogant, maybe I have a pride issue, maybe I'm just a jerk. But if someone's coming at me, I'm just not going to move. And I don't know how many times I've brushed shoulders with another guy because they were the same way. And I can't be the only jerk in the room. Other guys that may understand that. I've had people come to me after this, like, I do the same thing. But I realized after a while it was starting to get on my wife's nerves. And she was like, honey, I get it. It's sweet and all, but you're going to have to do something. You can't keep, thinking you own the sidewalk here. So she asked me one day, she was like, hey, next time, I don't care what you do, just take a step out and just go in front of me or behind me, but you can't keep bumping into people. And so again, for me, it was like a game of chicken. And so it was like, I really enjoyed, doing this, but it was one of those yes dear things, so I had to do it. So I started thinking about this in my personal life and in my business life. And so many of us out here are leaders. We're called to serve people from the front, and we're also served to lead from behind. And so many times we, as leaders, we want to do the thing out front. We want to be the one that's being the visionary. We want to be able to have people following us. We want to delegate tasks. We want to be the guy in the limelight or the lady in the limelight. And too often we forget about the important parts, and that's, sometimes we're called to lead from behind. Sometimes we're called to shepherd those from behind, and we're often called to lead in that way, provide the resources, encouragement, and help our teammates to know that we've got their back and we're going to be there from behind. And too often we forget that. And so today I want to talk about that a little bit, and I want to unpack that some because it's something that means a lot to me. So often it's easy for us as an industry to think about all the things that we need, all the things that we have going on. And I remember as a former agency owner, it was top of my mind all the time of like, I need these X dates, I need a full pipeline, I need these loss runs, I need these applications done, I need. And so many times when I talk to agencies, it's the same thing. And when I'm talking to them, they're talking about all the things that they need. And talking about all the things that are important to them, and they forget so many times what's most important, and they forget about the needs of their customers, the needs of their staff, the needs of their team. I forgot I had a PowerPoint for a second, but it's easy for us to get caught up in that, and we forget about the needs of our clients, our staff, and our community. And so I want us to think about that today as we talk about servant leadership. And you'll hear me talk about it as us and we, because if I'm pointing at you about this, I got three fingers pointing right back at me. And it's something that I've struggled with and something that I continue to struggle with sometimes. But it's something that I think we should always be working on. And today what I want to talk about is, what if instead of looking to sell somebody, we look to serve somebody instead? And, as we think through this, it's so easy, like I said, to think about sales, to think about the loss runs, the TPS reports, to quote Office Space. But again, it's so important we think about serving. There's so many industries out there that get this right and that do things the right way, and some of those. Too often, the sale comes first, and we immediately think about the service as a duty. And other industries get this in a way that thinks about the service first, and then the sale comes after that. And so some of those are Starbucks, Amazon, Delta Airlines, and my personal favorite is Chick-fil-A. And you think about that, they get that right. And I hear so many people, and some of you nodding your heads as I said that, they think about those experiences. Netflix is another one that people think about and they talk about. But they're the ones who get that right. And they're the ones who understand that. And a lot of times we call ourselves a service industry, but we may not do that in the best way. So today, what I want to talk about is this out-of-service model. Instead of, again, growing our agencies out of sales, out of all those things that we talked about earlier, we talked about growing our business out of service instead. In order for us to do that, it's important that we embrace three things. Before I got into insurance, full-time, I was a pastor at a Baptist church, and so like any good Baptist preacher, I got a 3-point sermon for you today. And so, thank you. I was going to have the cue the laugh thing, but thank you for laughing. But yeah, so I've got a 3-point sermon here. But again, I'll go ahead and I'll give you, give you those 3 points now ahead of time. So I'll give you a little spoiler here. In order for us to embrace this out of service model, we have to do 3 things. One of those, the first one that's important, is we have to build relationships. And you guys, I've been here for a couple of days now, and you guys have really welcomed me in. You really, this guy from Arkansas, not from here, and you guys have welcomed me, you've talked to me. That's one of the things that I love about this industry, is the people of this industry, people I get to meet on the road, the people I get to counsel with, the people I get to be with on a regular basis. And it's so important to me. And same thing with your community, your staff, your clients. Build lasting relationships that matter. Not just, people that have price tags on their head, or people that you see as a transaction. Really look to build lasting relationships. Number 2, and this one's important. I hope you can listen to this one or take notes on this. Provide real value. Providing real value, not just, a cheaper price, not just what they expect to get out of you, but really look to go beyond that and provide real value. If you were in my session yesterday, we talked about that a little bit, about finding your value add and finding things to go beyond price with people. And the third one is to be proactive in our approach. When you talk about being proactive in our approach, I want to go back to, as we talked about a minute ago, there's other industries, other companies out there that get this right. I call them the gold standards. They're those companies that truly understand. My personal favorite is Chick-fil-A. I live directly across the street from a Chick-fil-A. I could hit a golf ball. I was talking about somebody with golf earlier. And it might be take 6, 7 shots, but I got it in. But I could hit a Chick-fil-A from my house with a golf ball, and I say all that, now I got to get back on track. You messed me up. But I had to work in 6, 7. I told him I would. But, so, again, Chick-fil-A gets it right. And what is it you guys think of, first thing you think of when you think of Chick-fil-A? My pleasure. Exactly. They get that every time. How many of you guys have ever gotten a free meal because they didn't say my pleasure? Because it doesn't happen. They get it right. They drill it in their heads. Customer service is the most important thing. They understand what it means to build lasting relationships. They call you by name for your order. They make sure that they provide you with real value. I don't know very many fast food restaurants that bring food to your table, or they take your trash away, they bring you a refill. That's real value beyond just being God's chicken. I mean, they actually serve you, and they actually find ways to bring that real value. And that Chick-fil-A sauce, come on, y'all. Chick-fil-A, thank you. I got an amen on Chick-fil-A sauce. That's the best. I do love some Chick-fil-A sauce. And those waffle fries, golly, I could go on and on. I'm kind of hungry. I missed breakfast. But yes, Chick-fil-A, they get it right every time. And at our house growing up, I have 3 kids, so busy with sports and all the things. And every time we would, I didn't want to come home and cook whatever, I'd always say, guys, what do you want? Always Chick-fil-A, every single time. Now, the other thing, if you think about Chick-fil-A, as a sidebar, it is God's chicken. And they do have great Chick-fil-A sauce and great waffle fries, but is it the cheapest in town? No. And people will pay that because of the customer service, because of Chick-fil-A sauce, because of building those relationships and doing it all in a proactive way. And the other day, I was just thinking about chicken, and I got a notification on my app that said, you got a free Chick-fil-A thing of chicken. And I was like, oh my God, they get me. They're thinking about me. Proactive. Another one for me is Amazon. How many of you guys have a package on your front porch every single day almost, or at least several times a week, from Amazon? Yes. I'm trying to get my wife to slow down on this, but it's like every single day there's like a new package from Amazon. But it does come in handy. I have one of those refrigerators that have the water and the ice or whatever, and you have to change the water filter. Early on, when we first got into Amazon and whatnot, I remember forever there, I would have to, every 30, 60 days, whatever it was, I have to take the water filter out, drive to Lowe's or Home Depot, and get a new one, drive all the way back to the house, change the water filter, and then again, 60, 90 days later, whatever it was, I'd get that message on there, replace filter, and I'm like, crap, now I got to go back to Lowe's, back to Home Depot, whatever it might have been, get the water filter, come back and change it. Well, then, once, we got a membership to Amazon, I was like, oh, I bet Amazon has these water filters. And so, again, I ordered that. The next time it came, it was on my front porch, changed out the water filter. And I was like, this was great. I ended up spending the gas, the time, the effort, the energy to go to the hardware store and get what I needed. Now, again, 60, 90 days later, time to change it again. I go to Amazon, purchase the water filter. This time, I get a message that says, hey, it looks like you've ordered this before. Do you want to put this on a reoccurring order? I was like, oh my gosh, that is next level thinking right there. Like, they're proactive, they're thinking about me. Now I don't have to even think about ordering it anymore. That's automated, and I don't have to drive to the store, and I don't have to do all that. Now if I can just have somebody change it for me, that would be even better. Then I've been really lazy. Speaking of lazy, how many of you guys have the Alexas in your house? Anybody? I have an Alexa in every room in my house, except for the bathroom. That'd be weird. I'm not a crazy person. But we do have one in the kitchen, the dining room, the living room, all the kid bedrooms, my bedroom. And I say that, because, I think Amazon gets it. And again, because Amazon's listening, I get all these great ads that pop up. I get things that come up. And so it's like they read my mind. And then my wife orders more packages. But again, we have to be proactive in our approach, build lasting relationships, and provide real value. I think so often in our industry, we miss that. What does that look like? What does that look like to be proactive? So I start thinking about, what does it look like to have that? And it's, several things. And one of the things that I love to do as I travel, and as I talk to some of you, and I've talked to some of you this week about this, what sets your agency apart? What sets your agency apart from the agency down the street? I guarantee you probably know what the answer is. Anybody want to guess? Nobody?
It's great service.
Bingo. Great service. I was afraid to get crickets there for a minute. I appreciate you. You got my back. All right. But yeah, everyone says customer service. That is what it is. And I hear that over and over and over, to the point of, if you're saying that, the guy down the street's saying that, the guy in the next county's saying that. So my follow-up question usually is, well, what is it that makes your customer service that much better? What is it about your customer service that is so excellent or is so wonderful, or whatever the catchphrase that you use for your customer service? And they, again, immediately start looking at me, and you could see that white, ghostly look on their face of Or they'll come back to me and say, oh man, when the phone rings and my customers call me and they need to get a certificate, I answer the phone and I take care of it. Or when they call me and they need to put a vehicle on their, or they need to file a claim, or they need to do this, or they need whatever it might be, I pick up the phone and I answer and I take care of it right then and there. Or my personal favorite that it drives me bonkers is I hear so many agents that'll say to me, and if you do this, don't hate me, but I'm about to hate on you, but I sleep with my cell phone underneath my pillow every single night. So no matter what, 24/7, if they call me and they need something, I'm going to answer. I'm like, come on. But what do you hear if you hear the same thing I do? What do you hear when someone's saying that? I'm answering the phone when they call. I'm taking care of things when they need it done. Anybody? You're doing your job, but it becomes an order taker. Thank you. Another amen. I appreciate it. I need you to come to my church too. I'm just kidding. But no, you're an order taker. You're not providing proactive service. You're not providing a real value other than just they call, you answer, you take care of what they need. So I challenge you guys today to think through that when you're thinking about your customer service, when you're thinking about all of those things and you're growing your business out of service instead of out of sales. What does your customer service look like? What does that look like in your agency? How in the world can you go from being sales-driven to service-driven? And I think it comes from being, obviously, proactive and not being an order taker. How do you become proactive? How do you do that? Again, this is by no means gospel, but this is the way I look at it, if I've got my slides right. Yeah, proactive service looks like this. My dad, again, I'm second generation. Dad's 82 years old, still slinging insurance to this day. So to me, he was old when I first got in. So I was listening to the wisdom of this guy. And he told me one of the easiest, simplest things he said was nail that first impression. As you're cold calling or dropping in, and his favorite thing to do when I'm 20 years old, he'd drive me off to an industry park or somewhere and just drop me off. He said, I'll come back and pick you up later. And it was just like, go get him, Tiger. And I was like, oh my God. But it helped me in so many ways. Like, I love cold calling and I love drop-ins. But again, he would say, dude, you got like 30 seconds, not even that long, to make a good first impression and to go in there. And again, he's old school. And so, hey, look at pictures on the wall, look for things to connect with, do all the things, but nail that first impression. Look for opportunities, to nail that. Number 2, ask the right questions. As you're having those conversations, as you're visiting with your clients, your prospects, whatever it is, ask the right questions. Ask them what their pain points are. Ask them what keeps them up at night. Ask them why they're shopping. Ask them the right questions. Ask your team that. If you're sitting down with your staff, you're having staff meetings, whatnot, ask those questions. If you're interviewing someone, and you're wanting to bring them on, or they're in their first, 90 days or whatever working here, what are your goals? What are your dreams? What do you want to do? What would make this the best place for you to work at? Ask the right questions. And probably one of the most important things, and my wife tries to nail this in my head all the time, shut up and listen. My wife always says, you got 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. Shut up and just listen. But yeah, if you just stop and listen after you ask those questions, they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear if you'll just shut up and just listen. A lot of times it's so hard for us to do. It's so hard for us to want to do that because we want to talk and we want to sell. We want to talk as fast as we can to get all our points in, but we don't. Or we assume we know, but we don't. If you want to be proactive, you've got to be able to ask those questions, nail that first impression, and just listen. Listen to what they have to say. I think if you can nail those things, if you can get those things down, and you can work on building those relationships, providing a real value, and being proactive, I think you're going to be on the right path. But I think it all starts at the beginning. It starts with that proactive. It starts with looking for ways in the beginning to nail that first impression. How many of you guys are involved in your local Chamber of Commerce? Anybody? Local chamber? I can't see every hand. Thank you. I see some. Have you guys ever been involved in the ambassador program with your chamber? Okay, I see some other hands there. Thank you. That was one of my favorite things early on in my career. And I had a pivotal, game-changing moment for me being a member of the chamber and doing the ambassador things because I love doing the ribbon cuttings. Ribbon cuttings, anybody go to those? Been a part of those? Had one of those? Okay, good. Thank you for not making me alone on that. One of the things I used to love was going to those ribbon cuttings and being a part of that as an ambassador of the chamber as a young guy because, it was a great opportunity for me to go around and shake hands and kiss babies and do the thing and, be around people. People energize me, and so I love that. But early on, it was like, hey, this is a way for me, to build up a pipeline, to get some prospecting done and do the things. But I recognized, really quick as I was going through and thinking about my time and thinking about my effort, thinking about what I'm doing, I was like, okay, I've done about a dozen of these things. I haven't closed any sales. I haven't gotten a whole lot of, good movement on this. I got to rethink my strategy here. Usually as an ambassador, we'd have ambassador meetings, and they'd give us, a list of the upcoming ribbon cuttings. And I thought, you know what, in my thinking, I'm a genius. I'm going to make a smart move here, and I'm going to start calling all of these businesses ahead of time. And I'm going to introduce myself with the chamber, and I'm going to say, hey, welcome, congratulations on joining, congratulations on your ribbon cutting that's coming up in however many weeks or whatever. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. And I just thought, that alone, I'm going to set myself up to be ahead of the game. So when I show up, my whole goal is I'm just going to show up, they're going to know who I am, and they're going to think, oh, what a great guy, he called, and, welcome to me or whatever. But what happened was I tripped over an opportunity, and I stumbled into something that changed the trajectory of our career for a long time, and it was something so simple. So I'm going through and I'm making these calls. About the third or fourth one in, a guy I was talking to said, I was like, hey, this is Heath. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce. Congratulations, yada yada yada. I did my spiel, and I was like, hey, let me know if I can do anything for you. And by God, he said yes. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So he said, you've done a lot of these, right? And I was like, yeah, I have. And he said, this is a good opportunity for me to have a reopening and to do a ribbon cutting. And, I want to make sure this is the best opportunity that I can have. Could you help me to plan out and take the best, take the most of this opportunity? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. I said, why don't I come by your office? We'll sit down, we'll plan the whole thing out, and we'll make sure this is the best day of your business life. This would be great. And so fast forward, went to his office, sat down, we started planning things out. And I was like, yeah, we can have, local radio station can come out. We'll get one of those bouncy houses, one of those, air dancers. If y'all were in my session yesterday, I'm not doing it again. But we can make this a big deal. I could get one of those grills from the local bank and come out and grill some hamburgers and hot dogs. And we'll make this a blowout. Make sure you invite all your friends. Tell your mama to invite her friends. And tell your staff to do the same thing, because they're going to take a picture. They're going to put it on Facebook. They're going to put it on their website. You want to make sure it's a good picture so people get FOMO and they want to feel like they missed something. So again, fast forwarding to the day of, and I'm out there, I'm flipping the burgers. We got the bounce house. There's a lot of people in the parking lot. It's going really well. And I'm like, man, I did good here. This is awesome. This guy's having a great day. And it just felt good. And so then afterwards, it was all, said and done. I'm cleaning up the burgers and I'm putting stuff, into go containers or whatnot. And the gentleman comes over to me and he's like, man, Heath, I really, really appreciate you doing all this for me. And at this point, I'd never even mentioned insurance to him at all. He thought I was with the chamber. He's like, man, what do you do for the chamber? I was like, I don't work for the chamber. I own an insurance agency down the road, and I just love being a part of the chamber and the ambassador program. And he was like, really? You're an insurance guy? And you did all this for me? And I was like, yeah. And he said something to me I'll never forget. He said, I'm not even your client. He said, imagine if I were your client, the kind of service that I would get if you're willing to serve me in this way now and I'm not even your client. And that resonated with me in a big way. And I was like, wait a minute, And I really started thinking, what am I doing for my clients right now? Am I serving them in any way, form, or fashion right now? I'm doing more work for this stranger that I met a few weeks ago than I am for my own clients. What's going on here? And that stuck with me, and I was like, oh man, I got to make some fundamental changes in what I'm doing to serve my prospects, serve my clients before I even make the sale. And again, that little moment, it was something that just made a shift in me and helped me to think about what I'm doing in a different way, to think about how, in the beginning, can I be, providing that service and being proactive. And I ended up, writing his business, and I ended up, making a little bit more out of that and training other agents that I worked with to do that same thing. But it was one of those things that, like I said, it was a pivotal moment for me in my career and in my life there. It all started right there in the beginning. I set the precedent with my prospects. And that was one of the things I started doing every time I'd go out and prospect. It wasn't one of these things of, and I've heard this so many times, so if it's you in your head right now when I say this, if this is you, stop. I challenge you to stop. But when they make those calls, or when they're talking to me about their sales pitch, it's always something to the effect of, hey, my name is Heath. I work at this agency. If I could save you money, would you let me quote your insurance? If you're leading with that, again, you're leading with sales, not service. If you could find a way to lead that conversation with something related to service, how you're going to serve them, how you're going to be there for them in this way, or what you're going to do for them. And again, if you were at my service or my thing yesterday, we talked about some of those things. As an industry, we have to look for ways to provide real value, build relationships, and do it all proactively. I'll tell you another thing that happened to me. Again, another one of those pivotal moments in my life was a time that I had a client that was probably about 2 hours away from me. And it was an HVAC customer, and a good-sized client of mine. And one of the things I tried to do with all my clients is I'd go meet with them on a regular basis. I'd go to their office, sometimes be phone calls, sometimes in the office, but I would go down there and I'd sit them, and we would go through their payroll, we would go through their sales numbers, we'd go through things, and we'd just visit, and I would just check in with them. And so I called, his name was Alan, I called Alan, and I was like, hey, Alan, I'm going to try to come see you. I'll bring some donuts, some breakfast to the guys, and we'll visit. We'll go through the thing, and while I'm there, I'll do some drop-ins while I'm there. If you have anybody you can introduce me to, blah blah blah. So, fast forwarding, I get there and I drive all the way down there after I take the kids to school, and I get there. It's one of those things where he looks at me, he's like, Heath, I'm so sorry. I forgot. I forgot you were coming, and I can't meet with you today. I can't. I don't have time. I've got a Dairy Queen job here. I've got this new business, new construction over here. I've got to do some work at this place. I got some paperwork to do. I got to meet with my accountant. I just can't meet with you today. And I was like, I just drove all the way down here. And so why don't I just go with you? And I said, Alan, why don't I just ride around with you? Why don't I go out with your crews and why don't we just hang out? And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, why don't I just come out with you a little bit? And he was like, all right, big boy, if you want to go, suit up and let's go. And so I start loading in tools. Now again, I didn't do anything, to cause me to be liable for anything. I didn't do any work. My hands are soft, guys. I've been in the insurance business forever. So I don't want you guys thinking that I did wrong by this guy. But I did want to get out there with the guys, and I wanted to see what they do. I wanted to ask some questions. I wanted to get involved. So I did. I didn't think he would take me up on it. I was a little nervous. Again, hands are soft. But I went out. I did the thing. I went and watched them do the ductwork over at the Dairy Queen. I watched them hoist this huge air conditioning unit on top of the building. I watched them go do some new construction work. I rode around with different crews. I was able to ask questions, see what they do, learn about their business. And again, this is all by I tripped over this opportunity. I'm not saying I'm a genius by any means, but I tripped over this opportunity. As I'm going through and I'm hanging out with the guys, I'm getting to know them, it comes down to time to go home. And he drops me off, and as he's dropping me off, he's like, man, I've never in my life had any agency that I've worked with, I've been open for 20-something years, roll up their sleeves and get to work with me. And to learn about what we do and provide that kind of value to understand our business, understand my people, understand the challenges that we go through. That means so much to me. I appreciate you, doing that with me. On your way out of town, I would love for you to go see Bob. He has Bob's HVAC company. I don't know, but he was like, hey, go see Bob. Go see him and tell him I sent you. Have a good day. Be careful getting home. It's like, all right, cool. First of all, just him telling me in that moment that he's been around this long, he's never had anybody to roll up their sleeves and go to work for him. It's always been, that mentality that we teach our customers so often of that 15 minutes or less could save you 15% or more, or if I can get you the cheapest price, could I shop your insurance? He was like, you went out and you actually did the work with me. You understood, what we do now. And I was like, yes. So I got to Bob's office. And I pull up, and I'm thinking, I don't have a lot of time. I'll just sneak in and out, say hi to Bob. And I sit down with Bob, and I meet him, and he said, Alan just told me that you went out and did some work with him? It's like, yeah. He was like, are you crazy? I was like, maybe, a little. And I sat down with him, and he showed me some stuff around, and he wanted to show me things, and we're talking through, and he was like, I've never had anybody call on me and lead with the fact of they went out and served. They understood our industry. They're able to talk our lingo. Go on your way out, go see Amanda, which is his secretary, and was like, hey, she'll get you everything you need. So I walked out of there with X dates. I walked out of there, with deck pages. I knew when their insurance was coming up. All because I rolled up my sleeves and I got to work, and I was providing a real value and doing that in a way that was helping me build relationships. And from there, I found out that Bob and Alan were on the board of directors for the HVACR Association in Arkansas. So I got to be involved in that. I got to speak at some of their events. I learned about that industry. I learned about their challenges. I learned about the things that they need. And I started teaching classes for them. I started learning about ladder safety. I started being there in the OSHA trainings. I started doing all the things so I knew how to speak their language. And what happened, again, was something super interesting for me. Every time from that point on, when I'd call Alan or Bob or whoever it might have been that owned the HVAC company, the conversation became, I felt like one of the guys. Oh, you're not going to believe what Jimmy did the other day on the truck, or you remember Amanda, this is the funniest thing that she did, or this happened, or if a claim came through, Jimmy, this happened, and it just became a different conversation. Or they would talk about a job they had coming up, and if they would call about certs, it was not just about the cert. It was about, that business here, they want me to come do their HVAC, or they want me to come do this or do some duct work. I became one of the guys. I became, one of them. Same goes for Bob and for all the other people. And it meant a lot to me because it made my job that much easier. I was able to have those conversations. And then the flip side of that, any carrier people in the room, any underwriters in the room, I was able to become my underwriter's best friend as well. Because I understood their industry. I understood what they were looking for. I was able to put together that wonderful submission, as you talked about, yesterday, and we talked about that, and I was able to sit down with my underwriters and put together a narrative to be able to walk through and say, hey, here's the losses they have, but this is why. Or I understand this is the challenges they're going through, and here's what I've got put in place. Here's the risk management tools I'm going to put in. Here's the way I'm going to help them to get, on the other side of that. I was able to sit down with them and explain to them, what this risk looked like. And they started to trust me. My carrier started to trust me because they knew the way I did business. They knew that I was the type of agent that was going to go out on the jobs with them sometimes. And I didn't do it with every single one of them, but enough to where my underwriters trusted me in that. And they knew that if I brought them a submission, that it was going to likely be a good submission, a good prospect for them, a good client for them long term. It was a benefit in multiple ways. I'll make sure I've got plenty of time here. Okay. That was one of those things that for me was super important as I continued to grow in my agency and in the things I was doing. I wanted to make sure, again, I was building relationships, that I was providing a real value. And, what is that, as you think about that, I was talking to somebody earlier before I started, what does that look like, providing a real value beyond the relationships, beyond, rolling up your sleeves and going to work? Because you can't always go out with your HVAC companies and do that. You can't go to your restaurants and put in slip and fall mats or do trainings for that. You can't always do that. But it could be annual policy reviews with every client. I think Kelly was here last year talking about that. You could lead with education. You could have webinars or seminars. You could make sure that you drop off material that educates them. And it doesn't have to necessarily be insurance related. It could be something to educate them about their industry. It could be something to educate them about something that's going on that could affect them. But yeah, that could be a value add that you bring to the table, leading with that education. You could do, like I mentioned earlier when I was with the HVAC Association, doing those OSHA trainings, being a part of that, sponsoring that. That was one of those things that I thought, at the time, what? But I realized now they start seeing me as that expert. They start seeing me in that because I led with service and not with sales. Driver data from telematics. Again, this is a big one. A lot of people don't necessarily agree with that. They don't like the telematics thing, but I think there's so much that you could bring from that. And you could, go over some of that data as you talk about Jimmy, or you talk about the different drivers on the policy, and little things could happen there. I have a 16-year-old, so that's another big one for me. I'd love to know, and I could bust him. But telematics, providing them with resources. There's lots of resources that you could provide for them. You just got to stop and think about that. And again, all these things are not tied into price. These things are not price driven. These things are ways that you can grow your business out of service and provide them real value outside of sales. The other thing is referrals. As my business started to grow, and I started having, I didn't have just the HVAC niche, I had other niches as well, and I'd work with other contractors. Being able to provide referrals for them and be able to say, hey, I work with this guy over here, it might be somebody good for you to work with, or you could refer them to your friends that might need a good HVAC person, or somebody might be looking for a good restaurant to go to. Hey, go down there to XYZ restaurant, or call blank HVAC company, whatever it might be. But if you can provide them referrals, that may be another value add you could bring to the table for them. And then another big one is self-service options. I talked about this a little bit yesterday as well, but I've noticed a bigger trend, and people, your clients are wanting that. They're wanting to be able to request their own certificates, to manage their own certificates. They're wanting to be able to manage their ID cards. They want to be able to see their policy information. They're wanting that at their fingertips. And if you could do that, instead of having to sleep with your phone underneath your pillow at night, you could be able to offer that 24/7 service without having to do that. They could do all the things they need to do on a self-service portal of some sort. Y'all with me on that? Does that make sense? Yes, Heath. Okay, good. Thank you. Proactive service can be just as simple as checking in from time to time. Again, going back to my story with Alan at the HVAC company. Just checking in with him led to me stumbling into an opportunity there. Same thing could happen with you if you just check in. You might find something out that you didn't know. If you guys, listen, I used to, you came last year to hear Kelly when she talks about doing those calls and doing the review calls with every single one of your clients. One of the biggest things, I used to work with Kelly, one of the biggest things that I found was fascinating about doing those review calls, and she may have mentioned this last year, was the biggest takeaway that I got was they got so much value out of just updating their phone number or updating, their address or whatever it might have been. I'm like, so simple, so silly, but they took that as a value. Like, oh yeah, I do have a new phone number. Thank you so much for calling me on that. But again, just a simple check-in could lead to providing so much value. How can you grow your business out of service? How could you look for ways to grow your book of business? Provide more value to your team and your staff out of service and not the other way around. I'm a little early, but I did want to tell you, one more story, if that's all right. Again, I mentioned earlier, I'm second generation, and my wife is second generation as well. And her father owned an agency in South Arkansas. And on Easter Sunday this year, we got a phone call. He passed away. And real sad day, obviously, for not only my wife, but for me as well. He was a mentor to me. He was someone who taught me so much and I cared a lot about. And I had been planning this talk to do in Las Vegas for the first time the next week. So he passed away Easter Sunday. We buried him on that Wednesday, and then I flew out, for that weekend to go do a talk in Vegas for this very talk. I'd never given this talk before. But as we're going through, you got the receiving line, and people are coming through, and they're shaking my hand, and they're hugging mine and my wife's neck, and they're telling us, how sorry they are for us. But one of the things we found over and over and over was his clients, his staff, his customers, his community would consistently come up to us and say, his name was Tommy. Tommy used to come out on Saturdays and bale hay with me. I'll forget when my dog got out of the yard and he went down the road and found him and brought him back to me. Or his neighbor across the street. Every time my husband would go out of town for a little while, he'd come over, he'd mow the yard for me. He would make sure, that my, weed eating was done, my yard was raked. He took care of me. Just countless stories of people that would say how much this guy served them. And I knew he was a good guy, but I was biased. I was his son-in-law. But to hear so many people that came up over and over and over and just brag about what a good guy this was. And, his customers at the agency, same thing. They would come up and just talk about all the different things he would do for them. Not one time did a customer come up to us and say, man, your father-in-law was the best insurance agent because he got me the cheapest quote. He got me just bottom dollar pricing, saved me $3.76 a week, whatever it might be. I never heard that. I always heard your father-in-law was such a good man because of this service he did for me, this thing he did for me, for our business. And that was a legacy that he left behind. That was something that mattered to him, which obviously touched his community and touched me, touched my father-in-law, or touched my wife, touched my kids, and so many people that knew Tommy Ross. The timing, it sucked, obviously, we lost him, but the timing of me preparing this, I think that was a God thing for sure. But I ask you guys, as you think through your agency, your personal life, how you're growing your business. Are you growing out of sales? Are you growing out of service? What is the legacy that you're leaving behind when it comes to your agency or your personal life? I would love for you to be able to say you're growing out of service and not the other way around. Thank you guys so much. for hanging out with me for a little while and let me jump up on the stage and talk to you about something that means a lot to me. I'd love to connect with you. If you want to, you can scan that code. And again, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.